Okay.
Here.
So I did not, of course, print out the these things. Just do the old fashioned way. Really interesting. This class has A through N and nobody after
Hold up.
You speak Spanish?
Me?
Nah.
¿Ha visitado un lugar que habla español?
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. Yeah.
No, but I work with mostly Spanish at home. And I just took it for a bunch of years. But they're the reason that I am able to speak it, because they would correct me and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near perfect. I can't
Sometimes
just.
the street Spanish is more fun.
Yeah. No, it's just to communicate, that's all.
Yeah.
I can't speak it, but all my high school coaches speak Spanish, and you would just get absolutely flamed in Spanish. Got picked up on what stuff now.
For baseball?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the language of baseball. I actually taught, when I was in the Dominican Republic, I taught English to one of the farm schools. And the English that they teach at those farm schools is all about baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, the only English those kids learn is it has to do with baseball. Everything. It's like,
They don't play anything else over there. Like in Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti is literally all baseball.
Venezuela, yeah.
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Baseball. Okay, so we've got James. No, James. Yes. You're here. Do I have two Jameses? And Peter. And John.
Yes.
And Robbie. Robert.
Robbie.
Robbie. Got it right first time. And Taylor. Oh, I'm sorry. Caleb, I am dreadfully sorry. Amanda. Here. Ian.
Yeah.
JP.
Good.
And Kayla. And Kevin.
Yes.
And Lou.
There.
And Anarius.
Anaris.
I had an extra syllable. And Sulai. Celia. I'm doing horribly.
No.
And
No.
no Brendan. And Connor.
Here.
There. And Brady. And then our alphabet stops because I've never had a class like that. Apologies. Okay. So today, we've got a lot to talk about. I know one of your books is still somewhere in the Atlantic. It hasn't made it to these shores yet. So we'll work on incorporating it as it gets here, and we'll figure that out. In the meantime, you do have other readings that you can do to prepare us. The destruction, you should start on that.
I have a
So
question.
we're here, yes.
Is this book online like your other history class? Or is the reading
The
online?
readings for the first couple weeks are.
Okay.
All the readings for the first couple weeks are online except for the two
Okay.
little
Yeah, I
books.
had those ordered.
That is it. Now it's my turn. I need to touch things. Okay, do it this way. Okay, so week 2 is where we are right now. Okay. So the other thing that we're doing with this, that we're going to start up is discussion threads, so that we're doing a lot of prep work outside of class, so that when we get into class, you guys have questions and things that, so it's not so much like pulling teeth and making sure that you guys are online with everything. So this is kind of our test week of getting those doing those online discussions. Part of it that's going to make it a little more difficult is that I didn't have you finish your discussion until tomorrow night, right? So I didn't think of that very well. So with your discussions, where is it? Over here. You go into discussions. This is where we are this week, right? So the online discussion. So everybody should be able to access it. It shouldn't be divided into groups. It should be the whole class here. But you won't see anybody's response until you put something in right here. So where it says reply, you reply to your answer here. Yes.
I can't get into
Canvas?
Canvas, yeah. Like I log in and it just sits like I'll show you.
You can't get into Canvas for anybody.
Not for anybody. It just does this.
You're gonna have to take that to IT. You should be able to access that. So, and you're on mine, so you're in there somehow. It's just you're not. You're just picking it up. So once you get in here, you have the name, what you want to do. Write a couple paragraphs, small paragraphs, not dissertation or anything. And then once you do that and pop it in, then it'll be up there. We've got a couple people. I'm gonna call them out here because they've done some really good job here. They've already have discussions in here and responses to each other. So we've got that going. Okay. Once you get in there, there's also some more information about how this is going to work out. So that's what I want to go over right now. Is for our future discussions, they will always be due on Sunday night by 6 o'clock. You should have your first initial response for whatever that week's discussions are, and then you have 3 more days to talk to your classmates and communicate and add things and subtract things and that kind of stuff. So Sunday night is the initial thing. You should get on so you can see everybody's questions or comments or whatever it is. Once you're in on by Sunday, then for Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night, that's when you engage each other. If you get in before Sunday night, you can always engage before that. That's part of your thing. These discussion pages will go up on the Tuesday of the previous week. So you'll have between Tuesday and Sunday to engage, to put your initial thing up. The sooner you guys put stuff into it, the sooner you guys can engage each other, and the more kind of discussion you can get going for that Sunday night and those next 3 days. So it's kind of on you guys as to how involved and in depth and flowing this conversation goes. If everybody waits until 6 o'clock on Sunday, then you're not going to have anything to discuss with each other until everybody gets their stuff in. So that kind of limits even your guys' ability. So if you start, to do something after class on Wednesday and go and write your comments or whatever needs to go in at that point, then you can get a good conversation going over the weekend and keep that going. Does that make sense? I put in here also the kinds of things that you can think about. If I don't have a discussion, like with this week, we have the guns, germs, and steel and whatever else Jared Diamond's thing to discuss. So it gives us immediately something to talk about. But if there's nothing scheduled for that week, no like automatic discussion, there are all kinds of things you can talk about. What things to talk about in class, something in your reading that sparks your interest, something that came up in class that maybe you weren't fast enough to get your thing in, and so you want to put it in online, or you just didn't want to say it out loud. Whatever that is, that's what this is for. So we can keep the conversations going and start new ones and explore things. You can do that with this one too, with our Guns and Steel, with our documentary one. You can add things in. Oh my gosh, in our reading, it says this, and that kind of isn't that the opposite of what Jared Diamond is saying? So what's what gives with that? We can start a conversation like that too. So this is totally open for you guys to have out of class discussions, which then can flood right back into here, and we can have some really fun kinds of interactions in class as well. Okay? Does that all make sense? All right. So I think I sent you an announcement with all that information. Let me make sure I did. If not, I'll do that right after class. Announcements.
Did you find the video that?
Yeah, I did. So I sent all this information in your announcements. So make sure that, I think I told you this before, make sure that you have your announcement dinging thing. You get pinged whenever I send announcements for the class. Did I tell you guys that? Or not? I have 3 classes, I forget who I tell things to. You should have something in your Canvas site that allows you to get pinged whenever I change assignments or add this or take that out or give you announcements or things like that. Okay? Yeah.
Do you know where to find the actual video, or is it like a files part of the?
It's under the week 2. I think it's either under week 2 or week 3. I think it's under week 2. So go over to the modules here. You can
Oh,
see
the modules. Okay.
modules, and then under week 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, what I did was I have an outline up here, so so you can look and you can see everything we're going to do. I have up to week 7 outlined here. So you have all of that. But underneath that, each week pops out and all the extra stuff that I have to link in goes there. Okay? So under week 3 for all of the stuff for your map is under that part. Okay? Any other questions? Navigational issues? Okay. All right, so then let us engage in discussion. Okay, so not everybody's seen the video yet, but you've done readings. So you read last week's readings. What was last week's readings? Last week's readings you should have completed, except for the Columbus. Obviously, we haven't done Columbus. But everything else, so the Claypole, we talked about the Arawak and the original peoples there, and the earliest settlers. So we did all of that. So now we're getting the Europeans here. So everybody's probably read different parts of it at this point. But what I want to make sure is happening is we're seeing the clashes of culture. So last week we read about what the peoples were like and their culture was like here on this side, and now you're reading about what the culture is like on the other side of the water and seeing what happens when Spanish, the choque, there's like no direct translation, but it basically means like everybody clashes and smashes together. So, with that in mind, And with what you've read so far, what are your perceptions of what is happening on the islands in 1492 to about 1495?
I got really happy when Columbus died.
Takes a while, 1504, he's gone, but yes. What? Let me go into that more. Why were you really happy? What was it?
Because he was not. I got really mad, especially when it was talking about like how he interacted with them in the beginning, but wrote contradicting things in his journals, and he was obviously racist, and I don't know, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because even though I understand in theory like time period and stuff, but like the clear contradiction between his actions in the beginning and what he was thinking it shows that he knows that they were people and not just like what everybody was saying, you know?
Well, I found that the attitudes of the articles were very different. Like, for example, the first article, The Coming of Columbus, it had it was extremely negative towards the Spaniards and Columbus, which, I mean, it's clear to see, like, why it would be negative, but I noticed the other articles weren't quite as negative towards him, or towards the Spaniards and Columbus. They were kind of just, like, telling it, well, not necessarily telling it as it is, just, like, relaying facts, like a traditional history book. But another thing that I noticed in the first one was that it actually said that normal history books, they say that most of the natives died to disease, but the first source says that most of them died to, like, Spaniards and their cruelty and just torturing them and murdering them brutally. So, and I'm not quite sure which one is more accurate, whether more died to the Spaniards and their cruelty or whether more died to disease, because the other sources seem to kind of make it seem like more died to disease, but I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
So I was struck by, the way Columbus take people generosity to, opportunity. So it's just like, everyone, people are so like generous people, and then at the end of their, it took them as slaves.
Yeah, so that's kind of on Caleb's
Yeah,
side.
that's a good outcome.
Yeah.
I noticed that, like, what you were talking about, like, when the Spanish pulled up, they were, like, talking about, it was in the old world precedents one, and they were saying how, like, the landscape was, like, equal or better than their own, and it was the thing you were talking about, the diaries we have to write, like, looked like a good source for that.
Yeah. In the other class, I have them writing a diary entry.
Oh, that's not this.
No, but it's a good thing to think about, because they're writing, he gets it twice, or 4 times a week, so we're really bugging. But they're writing a diary entry about the moment of contact. So you can be an Arawak or an Inca or an Aztec or a Spaniard, and coming up with that moment of contact and what it's like for that person. So, I mean, you guys can do that in your discussion. Trying to limit the amount of things I'm giving you to do. So, but that's what he's talking about. But these readings, yes, you can definitely use these readings to help you.
I thought that was
No, it's not. No, I think that's a very good thing to bring up.
I thought, to go along with what people have been saying, Columbus was definitely portrayed, like, when I was reading the first article or book or whatever you want to call it, it did seem like he was like the enemy, like the bad guy of the whole thing, and he was always getting through. Like, I'm not saying that he didn't do horrible things, because that was it, but it was just like, it seemed like, and then they also portrayed De Las Casas as like the sense of reason, like, and I was like, and then they like casually mentioned it, like I knew from like because De Las Casas, he's pretty big, so like I'd heard from him before and how he kind of turned 180, but they didn't even mention that in that whole thing. And then they like put it at the end. They're like, well, he had previous experience being like owning and being a part of this whole I forget the recomienda system. Encomienda. Yeah, system. They were like, yeah, and he was that's where he got all his money and influence.
Yeah.
So I thought it was something worth noting, kind of how they portrayed those two characters, and there was definitely a slant that they were trying to show everyone.
An encomendero is somebody who owns an encomienda.
What's an encomienda again?
What's an encomienda?
It's basically where the Spanish would seize native land and they would have the natives work on it. So, I mean,
Native slaves?
Yeah, native slaves.
Basically slaves, yeah.
If it could easily be.
They never use that word.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah. If they were free, it would just be sharecropping. But since they're slaves, it's the encomienda system.
Sharecropping is also used.
Yeah, it's also.
Oh, I thought.
Well, technically no, because technically you're supposed to share the crop.
Yeah.
But in actuality, in reality, sharecropping.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
As we're talking about for the U.S. South is actually just slavery. So, but it's kind of like this idea of they're not slaves; they're tenants of the encomienda. So it's just their euphemisms for what's really going on.
Just also a passage that stood out to me. I remember was I think it was a priest saying that the mass suicides and stuff were because they were lazy and they wanted to avoid work, but I was just like, wow, it's like there's mass suicides going on and you're chalking up to them being naturally lazy. I was like, there's obviously something more at it could be you destroying their entire culture and forcing it. It just I was like, wow, okay, so that's what they're going for.
I just noticed how every time Columbus went to the island, he tended to kidnap a lot of kids and women and take them back with him.
They're smaller; they fit in the space easier. But I mean, why is he doing that? What is?
Didn't he say? They said something about I don't think it was Columbus. It was a original thought, but there were other. They did it was in West Africa as well, where they were if you put them together, they'll be happy. They're in a family, so kidnap all. Not you don't want just the man for what. Yeah, I was like, don't just take the male, even though he's the one that's going to be doing the work, because he won't accept the culture that he's in if you don't bring the whole family there to get indoctrinated.
Also, they said it was harder to run away if you got a family.
Well,
True, because they just disappear. Yeah.
You have something to be there for.
They weren't taking family units, they were taking random men and then random women too. So not sure how that works.
Yeah, it was a little disconnect on that, but yes, that was part of the problem. They were like, oh, these people are all together, we'll just take that as a unit. And it started, I don't remember which one of the readings, it was one of the readings from last week, talking about the Portuguese. And so that starts with the Portuguese as they're kind of bouncing along the west coast of Africa, and realize that not only can they acquire gold and salt and pepper and some of the other spices and riches, bypassing the Muslim trade. Another thing that the Muslims traded were people, and so they could get in off of that as well. And so they actually took that idea, the Portuguese actually took that idea from the Islamic slave trade, which took it from the Slavic slave trade, which was the up in the Caucasus. So that it's an ancient idea. If you take a unit, then they'll be much more submissive. So the Romans would go in and they'd kill off all the men that would be a problem, and then you have the rest of the men, and then you add the women and the children to that, and everybody should be more docile in that regard. A, you killed off the men that are going to fight you, and B, you've got family units, some kind of unit that you're moving along. So you're not going to have the women running back to be with their kids, and the kids dropping off because they don't have family and all this kind of, have everybody kind of working through your system in that way. So it's nothing new that they're doing. They're just kind of adapting old systems to their needs. Have you guys started reading? Since you don't have the Columbus book, do you guys have the Destruction of the Indies? So you guys have started reading that?
I have a question about that. I got kind of confused reading it. I couldn't really tell how much of it was hyperbole and how much of it was fact. So, I don't know.
That is really interesting because we don't know. We don't know.
Pretty sure he wasn't with all of those expeditions, so I don't know where.
He wasn't with the expeditions, but he was
Right.
an explorer. He
Right.
was a conquistador. He was a soldier. So it's kind of like, you're in an army unit, and you know what the rest of the units are doing, you hear from people, and part of what he's trying to do is explain to the monarchs what's going on in their outer kingdoms, right? So if he talks just about his unit, that doesn't have the impact that talking about what's going on in the whole area. Oh, and by the way, Platoon Alpha, this is what they did, and Platoon Gamma, oh my gosh, this happened. I'm in Delta, it wasn't so bad, but, let me tell you what happened, I was there to kind of make things a little bit better, but it was still, so that's kind of what he's doing. There's one part in the introduction that tells you what was going on at that historical moment and why he's actually writing it. So that can help you a little bit more. Go back and to that part of the introduction, which there's so much there that I know you might have seen it, and then you get into it and you're like, did I just read? Did they tell me how to read this? So yeah, just kind of go back and see. It'll tell you in the introduction. Anything else? These are all good things. You guys are getting really good things. Yeah.
I think if we're talking about what you were where you were trying to the clash of culture, probably the strongest thing would be the Cacique, Hetui. Yeah, it's that story is very sad. It's very moving because they genuinely didn't understand why, because Europeans are more they're materialistic. They have a money system, so they want the money, but the natives they don't have that. So they really just don't understand why they're so obsessed with gold, and then they try to worship the gold as a god to try to understand it, but they just can't.
Yeah. You want gold? Okay, here.
Isn't it you see the money and the gold and everything like that, and if you had no sense of what it was and how the importance that they have, you think it's you'd be like, what do I hold in my society that of great importance? You're like, God, next both of them. I mean, they're not worshiping their fishing equipment and stuff like that. They see it as it has to be something
in the Arawak world would have been not monetarily, but just would have had that same type of power that gold had.
Territory, crops.
No, because everybody owns that.
Would it be
more with that?
Be the spirits.
The carrot maybe, but not the
the
Arawak.
spirit. What about the spirit things that they held
The
around?
semis?
Yeah.
The semis?
I feel like
But those are kind of everyday things. That's like a pot. It's just a vessel.
The hurricane,
But that's a god. You guys are thinking, this is good.
Nothing.
No, there is something. There is something that that could be an equivalency.
Is it like a resource?
Uh-huh.
Tobacco?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
it's bad.
Yeah. For them, it's religious, right? It's a spiritual thing. It connects you to the spirit world. So when you guys are saying, the spirit world, yes, but it's an actual art, something that actually connects them. So, there's some historians who say, the Spanish god was gold and the Arawak god was tobacco. And it's not exactly specific, but it's not a one-to-one comparison, but the gold thing was what drove it. It wasn't God. It was not God country, it was gold. And for the Arawak, the tobacco was, in their society, the most precious thing. Right? So, I mean, here they're giving bushels and bushels and bushels of tobacco, and Columbus is like, I don't know, I have half a ship full of tobacco, the stuff, this leaf that they smoke, and I'm not sure, but they kept giving it to me. So I got a bunch of it. I don't know what to do with it.
Was it not in Europe?
Huh?
Was tobacco not in Europe?
They've never encountered it.
Never encountered it. Yeah. This is their first introduction to tobacco.
Really?
Tobacco is a new world plant.
Did they like, I don't know, smoke anything like over there, like at all?
In Europe?
Yeah.
Yes, they did, sort of, but it wasn't a thing. Coffee was not a thing, and tea was not a thing, and tobacco wasn't a thing until the 1500s. So coffee comes from Africa, from the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya area. The tea will come from Asia, and the tobacco will come from the Americas, and they all kind of meet in the Mediterranean and go different ways there. But it's new. The other thing that is new is sugar as an industry. So they're growing sugar, but it's a highly prized commodity, right? I mean, they do grow sugar and they do send sugar, just like with salt. You have salt, all these things, but it's expensive. It says in British state, very dear. It's very, very, very expensive. One of the things that the Portuguese do with their initial contact along the west coast of Africa is start sugar production in the Azores and in the São Tomé and São Tomé, which are off the coast. They get the sugar from India. So what they're trying to do is to move the point of production to where they have control of it instead of having to go through the Islamic trade routes. So it's slowly moving over. By the late 1400s, the Portuguese are starting small plantations for bulk production of sugar. That's how recent in history this stuff is.
Yeah, that's what started King Leopold's ghost, right? And that.
Leopold's later.
Yeah, that started.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it does start it, but Leopold is actually his thing is petroleum and rubber and that kind of thing.
Okay.
But that's in the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all. I mean, he's there because the Portuguese and then the Spanish and then the English and the Dutch were all there, and Belgium was like, we want some of this too. So, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I was just thinking of all these things that it's called the Columbian Exchange. So it's thinking of things that come from one side and come from the other side that neither of them knew about, but you couldn't imagine a world without it.
Weren't potatoes or tomatoes, wasn't that part of it? Both of them? Yeah.
Both. We wouldn't need it without the exchange. But if the exchange hadn't happened, there wouldn't be anything like pizza or spaghetti. Italy is like the nexus for Colombian, both Columbian exchange and like Marco Polo exchange. You've got the noodles from Asia and the tomatoes from the Americas. Without either of those things, what's Italian cuisine? I don't know. Another thing is pepper. So, like, I don't know what Hungarian food would be like without pepper. Really bland. But the peppers came from this side as well. But there are all these European dishes that potatoes for Ireland. You wouldn't have that. French fries or Belgian fries or whatever they are. Wouldn't have it without Peru. I always think of like the cosmic pizza, right? So there's this pizza that you have. So you've got pieces of you've got the bread, which is the Mesopotamian kind of thing. But then what do you put on top of the crust? Sauce, which is usually tomato, which came from the Americas. What else do you put on it? Cheese. Okay, cheese is definitely, as Jared Diamond said, that's definitely our Mesopotamian thing. Okay, what else do you put on it? Pepperoni. Where did pepperoni come from?
Berries and Jews.
It's not berries. It is one animal.
Oh, it's pig.
A pig,
Yes.
right? So the pig is definitely from which side?
Or, no, the others.
Yeah, it's from Europe. But now we wouldn't have like University of Arkansas Razorbacks or I don't know, any pig. We wouldn't have Labor Day, Labor Day picnic with your pork ribs or whatever without that coming over here. But now you go to the Dominican Republic or to any of the islands or to Florida, and the pigs are just there because when the Spanish got off the boat, the pigs came off the boat with them, and the pigs like went, and they were like, "This is cool." They just kind of set up shop. So that's what else do we have on pizza? What's a little bit on it?
Pepper.
Pepper. The peppers are from here. Mushrooms had on both sides.
Yeah.
It's a fungus. So yeah, that's on both sides. Onions, they had on both sides different types of onions. The yellow onion that you see is a genetic mutation of an onion that came from this side, but there were, you can get the little like chives or scallions. Those came on both sides. They're a marsh plant, so if you have a marshy area, you can get those kinds of bulbous plants. So it depends on what type of onion you're talking about, is which side of it. I don't know either. But they come from both sides. What else? Pineapple.
Oh.
Hawaiian pizza. Yeah, it's ham and pineapple. I grew up in California. I was like, yeah, of course you put pineapple on your pizza. I don't particularly like it, but I know what you're talking about. So pineapple.
It's not from Hawaii.
Yeah, it's not from Hawaii, isn't it? It's from Asia.
It's from that area. It's from the islands.
So,
Yeah, the South Pacific.
Indonesia somewhere.
It's further south of South Pacific. South Pacific. Yeah. Anything else? You guys are born pizza people. Pepperoni, mushrooms.
Meatball, but that's just meat.
Well, it's just meat, and those. That's good though, because all of those meats are European, Mesopotamian region meats. So we don't have any lava, we don't have any agouti in there. So
Nutella.
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 Yes, I don't know where hazelnuts come from. Hazelnuts, I think, are an old world nut. But if you were using acorns, then it would be from this side.
What about
You
a
can make
buffalo chicken pizza?
Buffalo.
Well,
You can make a paste out of acorns.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's like, how did humans figure this out? Hummus, chickpeas would have been definitely from the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can make butter out of pistachios.
You can make butter out of any nut.
It's awesome.
You can make milk out of any nut. Although the dairy industry is getting really upset at that. But yeah, you can any nut will make it. Will make a milky substance. The acorn is one of those plants that is like, how did humans survive figuring this out kind of thing? Because it's when you if you just crush it and make the paste, it has tannic acid in it. First, it's very bitter.
Yeah.
But second of all, if you eat too much of it, you'll die. It's poisonous. So you have to rinse it, which is like another thing that the Arawaks, their main staple.
Their names there's like that starch they had to make.
Oh,
I had
something.
something. That one.
That one?
Cassia.
Yeah.
Cassava.
You know I had it on here.
That's another one where I'm like, humans manage to survive and eat this because you have to go through. Did you read how the process of it?
Yeah, they gotta mash it and then they gotta rinse it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, so a bunch of people died.
It's gnarly.
figuring that out.
Literally.
Hazelnuts come from both sides.
Oh, they do? Okay, good. That's interesting to know. Yeah, so that's called the Columbian Exchange, getting things on to either side. Corn went over that way. Staple here, and they didn't have it there. Wheat comes this way, and it didn't do very well in the tropics. The weather like we're having right now is what it's like most of the time in Puerto Rico.
Oh no, this was everyday summer in Florida.
Oh yeah,
every single day.
Yeah, this is what it's like.
You'd have to wear sunglasses like while driving while it's pouring down rain because it's still super bright out.
And then afterwards you're like, did I just get wet?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're done driving and it's like sunny and humid now. You're like,
Yeah.
what, wasn't it just raining like
Yeah,
30 seconds ago?
I mean that was just before we came to class. That was exactly
Yeah.
like being in the Caribbean. It was just what every day in the Caribbean is, except for maybe November and December. So.
How did you explain the Columbian Exchange again? This is when both sides benefited from.
It's both benefiting and to their detriment. I mean, it could be either. It's just an exchange of products and culture from both sides,
Including disease.
including disease. And actually, what they're finding is that, in fact, I think in one of your readings, it said that there is only one disease that came from here and went to the other.
Oh yeah.
What was it? It was
Syphilis.
syphilis, yeah. And then they kept calling it. They basically, everybody just called it the nation that they didn't like.
Right.
They're
Yeah,
like, oh, it's a Frenchman disease.
It's an
English
Italian disease.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm gonna break that myth too, because in the last 3 or 4 years, epidemiologists have realized that it was always in Europe. It was always in the Mediterranean. It was just something about the confluence of the disease structure in the Americas and the movement of peoples, of sailors, basically, mariners, back into the Mediterranean after having been in contact with the Americas, that caused it to mutate into what became,
Deadly.
yeah. Well, it was always deadly, but it wasn't as virulent. It became more virulent afterwards.
The exact opposite of one of the theories that the meeting had. Okay.
But think about this as an academic exercise, right? I mean, this is the way, this was the thesis that epidemiologists, medical people had. And so their idea is, well, we don't see any evidence of this disease having been in Europe or the Middle East before 1492. So we're just going to assume, well, our hypothesis is that it came from the Americas. And that's what they worked with for 300 years. And then somebody in some lab somewhere was like, okay, but the germs say differently. And, had a germ sample from the Middle Ages. I think it was from like the 1200s. And I was like, this looks suspiciously like syphilis. Let me check this out. And checked out the genomic structure. Now that we can read into genes too, this has changed a lot of medical research. So reading into the gene structure of it, they're like, the majority of this gene structure is syphilis. You see a change in the gene structure after 1492, but it's the same basic thing. So it's the same genome. So they're like, well, we were wrong. We can still think of it as having become more virulent with the Columbian Exchange, but it was now they know that it was around before that. So there is actually no disease that came from the Americas.
That's kind of cool, actually. Like, they died of what, old age and.
Well, they did die. I mean,
They were not mortal.
It was just, they had, the common cold. They had, other kind of, you stand out in the rain and then you get cold and chills and stuff like that. But they didn't have pneumonia, which was caused by the cow or whatever, the bovine something. And so there's a lot of, things that, similar things that aren't quite as virulent.
Well, what about, because I know they definitely had mosquitoes then.
Yeah, so you would have mosquito-borne
malaria,
diseases.
right?
I can't remember if malaria is also from, I think malaria is from that side's mosquitoes. But now I can't remember if yellow fever is too. I read up on
Wait.
Crosby.
That was when they call like black vomit, right?
That is cholera.
So many diseases to kill.
Yeah. That's a waterborne disease.
Oh, I thought it said that.
I thought it said yellow fever too.
Yellow fever. Well, yeah, yellow fever you could too. But they're. Yeah.
Malaria actually came from Africa.
Yeah.
Same thing with yellow fever, they
Yellow
say.
fever. Because what happens is the Europeans had not infiltrated the tropical zones. They were in arid zones. They were in the desert. So that disease field was totally new to them. But then you're bringing people from this tropical region. You're adding the Europeans into that region, and then you're bringing everybody over to the Americas. And while the mosquito might not last that long, the disease does, and it stays in the bloodstream, and then the mosquitoes on this side acquire it. But they drink your blood, and so there's a whole scientific way that it works. My father's the scientist, not me. So just listen to him go and nod. There was a mosquito disease, and I can't think of what it was. It wasn't malaria. It wasn't yellow fever.
The Nile something?
Oh, West Nile.
Well, now, yes, now West Nile and dengue and yeah, they're all mutations that are from this side or the other way. But at the time, there was one mosquito disease that was already here, and I can't think of which one it was. But you still got sick, and so you can still do that. Cancer, mutation of the cells, that existed. Heart diseases, so a lot of those kinds of things were on both sides. There's malnutrition, so lack of some types of vitamins would have been in certain regions where you just wouldn't have access to some types of vitamins, or too much of vitamins, so, your food sources. So all of those things, are shared on either side. I didn't have any readings on the Columbian Exchange. I usually do.
The Columbian movement talked about it a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'll give you some more of that stuff. I will go back and review my Crosby, and then I'll give you some more stuff. There's a great book called The Columbian Exchange by, I'll go right over here. Alfred Crosby. Exchange. That is like the go-to text on this back and forth. That's where we came up with the word is from his book. So this theory became actually something that people now study these kinds of back and forth issues. Cool. Okay, so you guys had brought up some really, before we got off on that sidetrack, with some really interesting ideas about this Jochen, the contradicting information from people who are relating it. What I didn't hear mentioned was the fact that we really don't have much from the Americas side about what was going on. Right? So all of our information is, the hunter, not the lion. So the lion story is gone. We don't have that. Even the story of Matue. Right? It's a great story, but it's given to us by a Spanish missionary.
I think they did mention in one of the readings that they did teach some of the natives to read and write, but by the time they started writing stuff down, most of the population was already gone.
There was that one guy that was raised in a monastery.
Don Diego, I think.
Don Diego,
Yeah.
and there's Don Pedro too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting word to note because to go way back when you were mentioning like how they destroyed them if it was from smallpox or from anything, they said like basically it was impossible to find out because the destruction happened so quickly. And they were like, so like in like a 40-year period, like 40, 50-year period.
In that time, that's less than a generation.
Yeah, like it was like basically they showed up and they're like, yeah, there may be a lot of people here, and then when they actually got to the point where they're like, okay, let's count these people, they're like, there's like 100 of them. So I don't know if it's.
It also depends on the region, right? So on the islands, there is that very fast genocide that happens. It happens a little bit slower on the mainland. Right, so Mexico, Central America, down into South America, it really is the disease that first starts it, and then the contact, so the physical contact of the military that finishes it off. But when Pizarro gets to Peru, there's most of the places already succumbing to smallpox. So part of the reason why he's able with 300 men to take the Inca Empire is because the outlying areas of the Inca Empire are already kind of like, they don't feel good. They're dying. So that's a big part.
Also, wasn't the Incan Empire a civil war at the time?
They were having a dynastic war. So that is divided because of the dynastic war. And then when poor Atahualpa goes to try and rally the troops, he's killed off half of his brother's troops, and then the other half is starting to fall ill. So he doesn't have. He still has huge strength of numbers, but those numbers are not at their full capacity. On the islands, it's that that is something interesting. As you're doing your reading, try and figure out who is telling you which story. Telling you that it's the disease that kills everybody on the islands, or that it's the cruelty. Bless you. Because that, who is telling you that, tells you what they want out of what their agenda is in their story. So try to figure out what De Las Casas' version is, because his is different than the Spanish notary guy, the census taker. His agenda is different, and he has a different take on it. The textbooks have an agenda. So what is their agenda? Which one are they telling you it is? So try and see, who is saying, oh, it's the disease, or oh, it's the cruelty, and that, and try and figure out what their agenda is, why it's important for them to make you think, to make you decide that cruelty is the bigger evil, or that the disease is the bigger evil. Why do you think that's important?
I mean, just with anything, you need to be able to understand bias and what people are trying to, because a lot of people don't say things just, to state facts. There's always going to be a tilt in one way or the other, so just in life.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to Kayla and Caleb's thing about, the story being contradictory. So, at one point he's saying this, and at another point he's saying that, and which one do I believe? And is he speaking in hyperbole, or is he, what is he telling me?
And being able to see their agenda can help you discern what is more exaggerated than other things.
Yeah. Put this up forward if that's really where you want people to be looking while you're doing this in the background. Good. Okay, let's take our break. 5-minute break.
Dude, when you were leaving, you're like, come on, bring it in. I was like,
What reading was that?
I believe it was De Las Casas,
Oh, alright, I didn't know that.
Mexico City.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And I was like, and you still think they're savages when they can do things that you can't do.
Yeah. That I've never understood. It's like, there's a disconnect here.
I like how they use the same picture in the book.
Yes. The Hatue picture.
Yep.
But that guy was awesome. I was like, yeah, why would you want to go to the same place as all the Christians?
Yeah, that's true. He's so important. It was 3 books.
Did you guys read about the? I think it wasn't Abdue, it was Enriquillo who does the drowning. And they're like, oh, you drown.
Oh, yeah. I like the one that just invented guerrilla warfare and was like, we took your guns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your guerrilla is actually, it means little war, right? So it's guerra, little war.
Isolated incidences that reduce the number of casualties on your side.
And it came from this Spanish were like, they're fighting little wars. They're not playing by the rules. You're supposed to line up and go from there.
Yeah.
You face off with each other, then you fight. Then they're taking pot shots at us. It's not fair. You're not playing right.
And then you see the same disconnect in the American Revolution too, and the British are like, what the heck?
Yeah, well, and the Patriots got that skill
Right,
from
the Native Americans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Important thing about where I'm
Yeah, I would just say like I was focused on strength and totally just gonna take it, not even like
main part of Spain as because like Spain is like now that I see it as like because I studied Spain, I see it around like Barcelona,
they're used. Well, I guess there's multiple things.
What about you? No, more, yeah, sports. It's very interesting to try to do. For a while. Why do you guys want the Christian more
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the idea on Christian society that hasn't been thrown off by 2,000 years ago. Even though, I mean, they were pretty accepting of it, you still get this. Took care of training with the idea. It was smaller.
So how was Spain like because like now
Geographically,
it's just like one like northern Spain, southern France, like I'm from Spain.
You're from Spain. Well, actually, you would say you're from your region. You would say you're from Extremadura. You say you're from Andalusia. You say you're from Catalan. So yeah, you would. It's more by province that you would say, but as of 1492, it's Catholic.
Okay.
People would, you would say, it's just like you would say you would from
Massachusetts.
Yeah. Okay.
Even
Yeah.
though it's West.
Yeah. You identify as Spanish.
You're American.
Oh,
You're a nice guy. You don't seem like a murderer type.
don't seem like
Seriously.
Okay, start wrapping up your conversations.
Well,
It's been lit. Thanks for coming to killing a bunch of us and leaving. No hard feelings, I guess.
inside my people.
You know, when you guys come back, we're gonna just kill the shit out of you guys. You know that?
Like a dream or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what,
Snow showers, dude.
you guys had a very interesting initial reaction to this. What was it?
Well, if you think about it, it's like a trick question. Like how they both spoke different languages. They both didn't know the other language the other person spoke, so they basically had to play charades, so to speak. But initially when he first came over, he noticed some of our ladies were wearing gold, and they were interested in that. So I guess we gave them some of that, and we decided to give them tobacco because we love tobacco and we worship tobacco, right?
Well, you don't worship it, it helps you worship.
Helps
it
us
helps you
worship, okay.
worship it, yeah.
We give that to them, and they're just like, oh, okay, cool. We want some of your guys' ladies. And the ladies, we gave them some of them.
Well, did you give them?
Well, no, the ladies.
They offered.
They offered themselves. Yes, they offered themselves, and then one day a bunch of people started getting sick. We didn't really know what started happening, and then they started killing a bunch of us, and they took a bunch of us, and then just left. But don't worry, when they come back, we'll be ready to fight.
You'll be ready.
Yep.
You'll spread the word.
Yep.
And so on your side, what were you saying?
Well, we went over there. We were curious to see how they were preparing these meals. So we asked them how they fished and got some information on the native sucker fish. I forget what they were called.
Well, that's what they're called.
Now they're called remora. I don't know what they call them.
We were kind of confused on why they were giving us so much of this tobacco plant.
Did you find out that was the name of it?
No, we just thought it was like this brown leaf. We didn't really know what it was. They said it for from their it looked like they liked it, so we were like, oh, it must be like so yeah, so that was our conversation.
So it was difficult in the beginning because you're like, oh, how do we communicate?
Yep.
And you figured out a way to communicate and got a bunch of information.
There was a lot of tapping. There was a lot of tapping and pointing.
And perceiving.
Did anybody else approach it in that way? You guys just started off with a common. It's like Star Trek. You have the thing in your ear and
Yeah.
you just got inter global translator thing. All right. Universal. Just to make sure he makes got really rusty. Okay. Well, so everybody else with their universal translators, how did your conversations go? Why don't we just start?
So yeah, we spoke English to each other with the universal translator, and I said that I'm from Spain, so I said that the most important things from where I'm from are God, glory, and gold, and we don't really value the human lives as much of other people that we don't understand.
You said that right out.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I kind of implied it. I think he understood.
Let us go. Slap that one on the table.
Well, they could probably understand that from how we were behaving. So, yeah.
Okay. And then, so how did you perceive him?
He was wearing clothes.
Oh yeah, he was naked too. I forgot to mention that.
It's not my paint.
He wasn't naked. He was wearing paint.
Well, right.
I just told him about our everyday lives. It's very different than his.
Okay. And so you guys just. Did you see his idea that he wasn't there to be nice?
I mean, he said it kind of.
He
Really didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to explain what gold was, or I don't know, that it was important to us. So.
So I said that I'm Arawak, and we are very generous people, and where I came from is we all are generous. We value we don't value goals and all this stuff, but we like to welcome people whenever they're in our town, and then I was very nice to the Spanish group, but then at the same time they took my people and then sling them and all this stuff. So it was very nice.
In our Spanish version?
I said that our two most important things were gold and God, and that's it.
So she obviously figured out that that really was your important thing and tried to. Did you try to get rid of her? Or?
I mean, like she took my people and left, and I was like,
So yeah,
I guess
she kind of sidewinded you on that
Yeah.
one.
So I was the Spaniard, and I came and I said that we valued gold and glory, or God and glory, and gold, and yeah, just looking for stuff.
So what did you say?
Alright, I said what's important is where people work, so what island you're from, and then that it's community and what you do more, so like fishing or how you help people in your village, and then explaining that like everything's shared. And then going through, you could notice the Spaniards that just wanted to take things and never really gave anything, so you can notice they're more hostile and take people that don't know.
I was the Arawak. I said that we value community and we were willing to share and help you and something. And that was basically interesting. I was also just really confused by their values and what they value.
I was the Spaniard, obviously, and I said that the most important things to me were my position, and then for my country were gold and God. And then we started talking about God. It got weird. Trying to explain church.
Yeah. The Spanish need a physical site to worship, and the Arawak life is worship. So, yeah. Okay.
So I was the Arawak, and I basically talked about our community, like how we value it, and how we obtain like food and grow crops and stuff like that, and how our religion is important. Don't need tobacco to worship our gods. And, I didn't really understand his stuff, but I listened. It's an important part. And I also kind of thought of him as a god, so like I was kind of caught up in that.
What did you think of him as a god?
He was so strange, like with his hat thing, like his bowl
On the head.
thing, yeah. He was just so strange.
And then I kind of talked about how I'm the Spaniard, by the way. I talked about how our values are kind of gold and religion holds a really high place in our society. And basically, then we talked about our two different communities and how mine's a lot more developed, how his is not.
Did you understand that he was telling you were not developed?
I got that, but I didn't really take too much heed because I like my fish.
Okay. And you guys had a triumvirate over here.
Yeah. You want to go or you want?
So I was the Arawak. I was very nice to John, and some of my women friends offered themselves to him even, but I told him, or I attempted to tell him that our most important things were community, being in good graces with the spirits, and just like living as one rather than a individual. But he was kind of a dick and took all that and ran, so.
Yeah, I was the Spaniard. I tried to tell them that we worship God in glory. Gold, and we worship God heavily, and that we like to take other people's resources for our benefits.
You actually said that?
Yeah, I let them know.
I
I didn't really. I just started taking things, and I figured that they would kind of catch on, and that like our status means like where we are back home means a lot compared. I mean, almost like the Arawak.
So I was the Caribs, and I tried to talk to the Arawak. Kind of already know me, so I was talking to the Spaniard mostly. But I was trying to show, or at least tell him about like our idea of strength, and like the strength of the community and the strength of one person, and how that connects to like kind of our military, and how we're supposed to. Which I think they kind of understood our military organization and everything like that. But they didn't really see like being able to gather strength and like in kind of like a unit on someone.
Did you actually give them an example of this process?
I did not give them an example.
I think that would have been a conversation.
that may have been, unless we had gotten Arawak, and then would have been fine. But yeah.
Did you speak with the Arawak at all?
No.
Kind of steered clear.
No, that was quite separate.
Okay. So, what did you guys think of that exercise?
Kind of like handwritten on both thoughts.
Yeah.
We put ourselves in their shoes, see how they would, act around each other.
So in lieu of the diary, you guys got to do like in-person kind of thing. So good. One of the things that came out of it that almost all of the Spaniards said was this gold thing. It's like this gold. Do you think the Spanish really would have said that?
No.
They would have just taken
Yeah.
More so any research.
Yeah. I think actually, some of you said it explicitly, and then when I asked you explicitly, you said, well, I didn't say it explicitly. And I think that's kind of what was happening is the Spanish would go in and they're like, got something in your nose. And I like that. That's what, yeah. So, and the, whoever it is, the Arawak is standing there going, I know I washed today. It's like, why are you like staring at me like that? And finally you figure out, it's the ring in my nose. Because they didn't have big chunky things. It was just like a little ring in your nose or a little dot, like one of the, Indian dots or little earrings or maybe a choker or something. Little things. But that is the sparkles in the eyes. It was like, ooh, sparklies. It's like, okay. So the Arawak would have figured it out because that's all they go for. They also would have figured out this difference in how they do community because, the Arawak, the Spanish was just going to be like, that pepper pot smells good, and go for it. Whereas the Arawak have a specific way of distributing the pepper pot, right? So they're like, that didn't work. So there's going to be that kind of thing. The women offering themselves looks one way to the Arawak and another way to the Spanish. So all of that, while it's not explicitly said, so some of you guys felt like you had to say it explicitly, but just remember that in that contact, it would not have been like written in big bold letters. It's kind of just happening in the background, and people are like, oh, okay, why are you doing that exactly? Or that's rude, kind of that kind of thing. And on the Arawak side, remembering that for the Arawak, they're not docile, right? They're not just like letting this happen to them. So there's this idea that things are happening, and you're like, okay, we're gonna fight this. We're gonna, when you come back, we'll
come back.
Yeah, we'll know what to do. We'll be able to get this. So just kind of think of those as you're reading and as you're going through the next things. And it's in the discussions. Bring up some of these things that you thought of. And we were talking about this in class, and I really, as I read this, it really brings it out and what this clash would have been like. Or I can't believe De Las Casas said this. He actually did explicitly say such and such. And so if you kind of think about what we were talking about in class today, and as you're doing your discussion questions and talking to each other, connect it again. And we'll just keep this conversation going. Okay? All right, and we'll hope that Columbus comes in. If he doesn't, we'll figure it. We'll either not read him or we'll read him. I want to read him because he's fantastic.
So all the other ones
I think so.
Yeah, I just went last.
I didn't get the black one.
I ordered it on Amazon. The one that
I ordered it on Amazon.
I went on like Thursday, and they only had this one. Then I went on. They said come back Friday, and went back Friday, and I really did nothing. So.
And then there's a Sperano book too. So
I'd have the big thing.
all right. Okie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Enjoy the tropical weather.
Oh, that's great. Oh, it hits home. Don't worry. Thank you.
Your market is some more rain.
Oh, I know. As much rain as we have, it'd be nice to have that snow.
Yeah.
I love snow.